living la vida low carb. This show is changing lives. We talking about your diet, trying to get you feeling right. Cut up them avocados, fry some eggs, time to explore the longest running health podcast, hosted by Jimmy Moore. Time to give up the crappy garbage, we're getting into ketosis. Every day is a new step to your goal, yeah, you're getting closer. Motivated and focused, don't stop, just go. Time to get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com.
So guys, that right there is Dani Vizintin. She goes by Dani V over on Instagram. Check her out.
Yeah.
Dani Stay Fitness over on Instagram. That is her username and all the things. She's a fitness coach and the founder of Stay Fitness UK. So go check that out as well. Fitness coach, hormonal and metabolic health expert. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. But Dani, I found you because of this article in the Daily Mail, all about your journey from going from vegan over to more of an animal foods carnivore type of diet. And I was struck by your story and the pictures, like the picture of your before and what you look like now. It was very inspiring and very motivational. And sure enough, I looked you up on Instagram. I was like, hey, girl, let's do this thing. Let's have an interview. And so you were very gracious to come on here today. So welcome, welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I always love talking about, not so much about myself, because I didn't really do the art. Like, we're going to talk about a bit more why I did the article, but it's never really about me. I just want to spark curiosity and conversation. So yeah, that was the whole why I went out with this article. It's just I really wanted to talk about mostly the carnivore diet and how amazing it is and what it can do for people, because it's such a undervalued tool that could change. So you change everyone's life within 8 to 12 weeks. So yeah, I'm hoping that it kind of starts to be a bit more accepted. There's not been this super extreme thing, because it's not the opposite of veganism or anything like that, because it's not a religion, or there's no morality to it. It's just health.
Well, it is the opposite of veganism, because veganism will send you straight to not health, and carnivore foods will send you straight to health. So it is opposite in that way. So
yeah, it is opposite in that way. Yeah, sure.
Yes, and so I was asking what the Netflix show that you watched was that convinced you.
I watched back-to-back Conspiracy and What the Health. And if you I watched Seaspiracy recently, maybe a year when it came out, and all of the game changers, they're all pulling away. That people a lot of people criticize me for being silly, for just following whatever documentary says, but they appeal to your emotion. And if you don't have a medical super solid background, if when you listen to a doctor telling you, oh, eating meat is the same, no, eating eggs is the same as cigarettes. It wasn't could be, maybe. They didn't use any type of open questions. It was just pure facts. This is that. So it's you just accept it, isn't it?
And the vegans are very good at taking epidemiological science and trying to make something out of it. The whole eating one egg is equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. They've done that one for many years. But when you look at that specific study, it's just associations that they're making. They're not even looking at other lifestyle factors and things like that. I did a whole breakdown of the What the Health documentary on another podcast many years ago when it first came out. And it was the same thing. They appeal to the emotion and they quickly cite a study, and it's a medical doctor and he's wearing the white robe, and you believe because it's so powerful of an image. But then they take it to the next level of propaganda. And you're not the only one that's fallen prey to that. This is how the vegan message has proliferated. Only about 3% of the population is actually plant-based of any kind.
Yeah.
Just 3%. But you ask people and it makes it seem like it's 30%.
Yeah, 100. I think lots of people think about it, they want to do it, but then in the end they don't do it. They do it for a few weeks or a month, and then they give up because it's just too hard to know what to eat and stuff like that. But it's the problem with social media is amazing and I love it and I think it's an amazing tool, but I think it's a bit problematic in a sense that we oversimplify messages. and vegans thrive on that because like oversimplification is how they get away with telling not truth, because it's like, yeah, if you don't eat a steak, technically you're not consuming the carbon of that emission, but then you don't consider everything else that you have on your plate, or the car you driven that day, or the plane you taken that month. So it's like when you like take everything away, it can seem like as an information is actually correct, because
Yes.
it maybe is, but it's so like there's the whole picture. So it's like us now, like low carb kind of like we're trying to explain things that are quite complicated actually. So
Yeah.
it's really difficult to make us heard. And like when you try to explain what things are, it takes you 25 minutes to explain one concept because you can't just rush through it.
No.
Like telling someone why cholesterol is not bad, it's not in a, you can't put it into a sentence, can you? So it's a hard battle to fight.
So Keto and Delhi makes a great point. In his country of India, they actually use religion as the reasoning behind becoming a vegan.
Yeah, and how can you argue with that when I have Indian clients and they believe that eating meat will make you rot inside, you'll turn into a cow if you eat beef. Like, how do you argue with that? That's like completely irrational. So you can't, like, what we're gonna say, no, it's not true. It's like
Yeah,
they
well, I mean, when it comes to beliefs about animal rights or beliefs about religion, like at that point, you're so dug in, you're so kind of bought in through other means besides health that there's really no way of talking you out of that. And I guess as a coach, that can be a little frustrating because you want to help them, but you know they won't see optimal health until they actually add it back in, at least eggs and fish.
yeah, and yeah, I mean we already know like there's no really point talking about like there's no such thing as a kill three diet and like animal diet no matter what, and like yeah, I mean we could spend like now 2 hours breaking down every vegan myth, but I think everyone that's listening to this they already know. So it's like preaching to the choir. I wish that now we had a 30,000 vegans to talk to, but
Well,
it's really hard to penetrate that audience, like, as they don't listen.
you'd be surprised how many vegans listen to my show just because they're like spying on the opposition, and they're always
Yeah,
listening. But who I have on, especially a former vegan that talks about going carnivore, they'll troll us a little bit in the comments. It's all good. That's what they
yeah,
do. It's become an
yeah,
art, but they do listen. And so sometimes you never know what's going to get them out of it. Let's back up a bit. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this topic because you do have a lot of interesting things to say about insulin
yeah.
resistance and metabolic health. I want to talk about those things, but tell us, so you went vegan because of watching Cowspiracy and What the Health and some of the reinforcements. Tell us what that looked like.
Like my vegan diet, or like the process.
Yeah, so you just overnight went from the standard UK diet over to vegan, and what did that look like?
So yeah, I went. I'm pretty like I'm quite like when I decide something, that's it. Like I'm not gonna like think about it too much and stuff like that. So I remember I just brought home from Italy a lot of like hams and things like the usual Italian charcuterie. So I was like, okay, I eat everything I have, and then that's it. So then, like, I've always been like a good home cook and all that. So a lot of people accuse me for eating like vegan donuts and blah blah blah. Like I never even had, like, I had one donut in my whole life because it's not like in Italy we don't eat donuts. Um, but yeah, I just started cooking like vegetarian, like vegetable meatballs, and just try to immediately substitute basically everything that I liked. I tried to find the vegan version, basically minced beef and like soy mince. So I would just cook a lot of homemade things, like try to be as everything had to be as cheap as possible because I was so broke, like London living, it's quite expensive. And but it didn't like we didn't have the things we have now that you go into supermarket, you have a whole vegan aisle or anything like that. So just yeah, very like varied, like some things you can call them, and like I would make homemade pizza with vegan cheese, if you want to call that junk food. I don't know, it's still homemade and all that, like with vegetables. So yeah, I had like a normal diet, but instead of like having meat, I would have like vegan sausages, vegan burgers, and stuff like that. And then you just, I didn't realize how hungry and hungry I was getting. And so I just kept eating more and more carbs and all that, because I didn't even think about it, because I was so skinny before. I never had to care too much about, like, everyone, like, I could eat pasta every day and it never ever caused weight gain. I think it's just the lack of good quality protein, all those vegetables, everything with that. It's just I progressively started accumulating visceral fat, insulin resistant, and even after I stopped being vegan, the weight kept piling up. So I kept, like, the majority of the weight came actually when I stopped already being vegan. It's just the insulin resistance. So once you are insulin resistant, there's not really much you can do. A standard diet where you incorporate carbs and all that is not going to fix it. So yeah, that was like, but also, which I didn't talk so much in the articles, that I was always ill. Like, I had recurring colds, like one after the other. I was always homesick from work. Like, it was just awful. Like, my body was just falling apart.
Yeah.
So then I started eating meat again. It was quite, like, I didn't even think about it too much because I missed it so much. I met my partner. He's a heavy meat eater. So it was just unpractical, basically.
So, Dani, what was the first meat you had after being vegan for a while? And how long were you vegan before you started eating meat again?
Well, I had meat while I was vegan because when I was drunk, I would eat meat. So I still remember it was like I went vegan was like June or July, and it was like November. This is how vividly I remember. I was drunk. Like, I remember we had like platters at, like, it was like work. I know it was my leaving party at work, and they gave us a very little vegan option, and everyone else had like short rib, wings, like, and I started drinking. I was so hungry, so I was like, girls, I'm just gonna have this short rib. And I just remember how it tasted, and it tasted like the best thing I ever had. But yeah, every time when I was drunk, I would have anything available, basically.
You know, they say when you're drunk and your inhibitions are down, you act like your true self. So you were actually a
Yeah.
meat eater all along.
I never stopped liking meat. But I remember even I went home to Italy while I was vegan, and I was eating some ham and stuff. Like, we have like Parma ham in Italy. So it's like, it's hard to say, like, well, if you're super cooked, like, that's the thing. I was more convinced in the environmental side rather than the animal welfare. Like, I always thought, like, it's a bit like they would die anyway. Why can't we just eat? Like, I always thought it was a bit silly, that side. Like, it was more about for me, it was always about the environment. So in the moment, like, I seriously thought the cow should get extinct, because I was like, that's the only way we're gonna get through this climate change, is that we literally let cow extinct, then we don't have cow anymore, and then we somehow gonna solve everything. Like, so stupid. But yeah, and then yeah, we just started with my partner. We just started eating chicken. I didn't eat beef for a really long time because I thought it was bad for the, like, even after, I would only eat chicken.
Look, the indoctrination takes in strong. So it's hard for you when you've created a negative image about beef and about cows to then suddenly go, okay, it's all right. No, mentally, like, that takes a little bit of gymnastics to get there. You had to kind of methodically get there, starting with chicken, it sounds like.
Yeah, but then like, I was still cooking loads of vegan meals. I still thought that, like, veganism was the way. Like, I didn't drink milk. I was making chickpea curries and stuff like that. And then was like, okay, the only way I'm gonna get out of this if I sit down and do some proper research on emissions and all that. So I did a video, which I was inspired by, you must have seen What We Learned about eating less meat won't save the planet. Like, it was very scandalous. I was like, okay, he did it for the US, let me do it for the UK emissions. Like, because like what vegans do often is, like, they look at like what other countries do. It's like, no, you should you should care about your own country. What's
Yeah.
the point of looking what US does if you're in the UK? Like, you being vegan in the UK is not going to impact what's going on in feedlots or whatever is going on in the US. Like, you are spending money in the UK, so that's the only place you can have a remote impact, isn't it? So I was like, okay, let's look what's going on in the UK. I went to like official government sites, downloaded all their emission reports and all that, and like it took me quite a while to get through all of them. I looked at like farming reports and all that, and I was like, where's the emissions? Like, this doesn't look like it. It was like 4% of like the whole like greenhouse gases. And I looked at how farming is done. I looked at animal welfare and all that. So I was like, and then I did the video, which I think is a really good one. And yeah, then I was like, wow, okay, I can go back to beef, because beef is almost better than chicken, because I looked at the soy. So like, I'm sure we're going to bring up the soy, so I'm just going to look at how the soy comes into this country, how it's distributed, and I actually found out that at least in the UK, you use more soy if you drink soy milk than if you drink cow's milk, because our cows don't get much soy at all, because we have so much other stuff that we give to cows, that our cows get almost zero soy. So actually, if you consume cow's milk and cow's meat like beef, you almost consume no soy. So the whole argument about soy being produced for cows doesn't exist, at least in the UK.
Come here. I gotta tell you about this kit. It is a hair mineral analysis kit to determine your deficiencies in key minerals. It'll also show you your toxicity with heavy metals. It'll show hormones, your immune system, your thyroid, your adrenals, and your metabolism, all in one kit. And all you gotta do is go to upgradedformulas.com, use the coupon code Jimmy, you'll get 15% off this kit, but they have everything that you need to just basically give them a piece of your hair, and they'll show you how to do that. And then you mail it in, and they'll show you specifically where you have deficiencies. And then go to upgradedformulas.com. They have a full array of nanotechnology that will help you shore up those deficiencies in the minerals. So again, upgradedformulas.com, and check it out. Test, don't guess. So is the so-called plant-based burgers, the Beyond Meat Impossible, is that a thing in the UK? Because it's huge. At least they make it seem like it's huge here in America.
No, I think Impossible and all that are not as available, but they do. We have our own brands, like meat brands would make vegan versions of their own, like sausages and things. Every supermarket will have their own brands of stuff, but like, it hasn't grown that much. Like, it's always kind of, they have their own shelf, and that's it. And they will have new things added to their line. They have like now, they will have like ravioli before they didn't never exist, like all these kind of things, and like sausages and hot dogs. But it's not like I don't see it expanding, or they getting more space in supermarkets and stuff like that.
So at the beginning of the whole pandemonium that started 2 years ago, all the beef and all the real meat went first, and you could buy all the Impossible burgers, Beyond Meat. It was just gobs and gobs of them. Nobody was buying that crap. So I think a lot of it is very wealthy people pushing it as if it's a thing, but it's not a thing.
No, but yeah, like, I don't have any data for how many vegans we have and stuff like that. But I feel like it's not a growing movement as there, like, because I feel like most people try for a while and then they give up, and it's I don't hear anyone that's like, oh, I've gone vegan, or like, I don't know any vegans, to be honest. I used to, and the ones I know, they were either like overweight with severe mental health problems. But yeah, I feel like it was a boom when What the Health and Cowspiracy. I feel like suddenly overnight everyone did it, but I feel like now is not that, luckily.
as of 2019, right before the world got crazy on us, there were a lot of YouTubers that were vegans that were suddenly being caught on camera eating meat, and I laughed at the time because I was like, they know. They know that they're deficient, and they're trying to put forth this image, this, and I'll use the word propaganda to kind of hold up the message because they built their followings on veganism, and so they can't dare be seen. That would be like me getting caught eating a carb now, like a crappy carb. If somebody caught me on camera, oops. And so it was a little embarrassing for them, but it was a bunch. It wasn't just a one-off. It was like tons of these popular big accounts. And so yeah, I think the narrative was starting to unravel right before the pandemonium happened.
Yeah, but I think in this country, like vegan restaurants are closing down. Like I think even Earthly Ned restaurant is not doing well. Earthly Ned is like our main vegan person. I wish I would like. My dream is to debate him one day
Yeah.
if he's listening. Like I would really love to like I would love an intelligent debate with someone who doesn't think the same as me, but is like they will never do it, will they?
Well, yes. No, they don't want that debate. I remember here in America, one of the top people was T. Colin Campbell, who wrote the China Study, the big famous vegan Bible,
Yeah,
basically. And he had a debate with Dr. Eric Westman, who I co-wrote my Clarity books with. And they had a debate at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. This is like 4 or 5 years ago now, and it had a lot of fanfare, but T. Colin Campbell was all emotional. There was no like science presented. He did this debate, but it was this appeal to emotion, whereas Dr. Westman is a scientist. He's published like hundreds of studies, and he was using all the science. And meanwhile, T. Colin Campbell was just like evoking emotion in the crowd to get people on his side. And that's the unfortunate thing. Yes, they'll cite things like one egg is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes, blah, 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 but they don't like dig into that data. And then if you're debating somebody like that, you go, well, wait a minute, that scientific study is wrong because da 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 da. And the next thing you know, they have another scientific study that's bogus that then you have to refute. You'll just sit there the whole time like whack-a-mole trying to beat down all the bad science that they're reporting when there's actual good science that shows the opposite, that meat is extremely healthy, extremely,
yeah,
and going to give you a lot of things that are good for your health. But you spend so much time and energy whacking down their bad science that you can't even share the good science.
yeah. Gotta say hi. My cousin's up, and he's got two vegan sisters. And I know he struggled. He's like he's he's lifting weights and all that, and he's just like I have to like add meat to everything because my sisters would only cook me vegan meals. And um, yeah, I just wanted to give him a shout. I was like, you're gonna hear this pain of having a whole family of vegans and you being the meat eater. Um, but yeah, I agree 100%. And yeah, I wish there would be more debates, more intelligent conversation, because I feel like you always can learn from the opposition. And
And vice
Paul Palladino did an amazing, but it's like an hour and a half of like that's the problem. Is like when you're trying to get through a message, it's like so long from our side that I feel like people just drop out. Like it's so difficult to like, the every concept we try to talk about is so complex. Like I'm basically telling you everything is more complicated than you think.
yeah,
Nothing is as easy. You're gonna have to put in the time. You're gonna have to use critical thinking. You're gonna have to go against the grain, against what your doctor says, to achieve optimal health. And it's like people will be like, no, thank you. Like I'm just gonna do what everyone else does. So yeah, is as I said, it's not an easy battle to win, unfortunately. But all we can do is lead by example and show the results, basically.
yeah. So, Danny, when you went back to eating the perfect human diet, is what I would call eating meat. What happened in your health? Because you did have, at least according to the article, and you had pictures of yourself very malnourished, and then you became fat eating vegan, basically. What were the things that got better besides your weight? What else did you see improved when you started eating meat again on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, my weight, like I lost quite a bunch of weight before to be like the time I was like I lost a bunch of weight, like but the fact is that I couldn't keep it off.
Yeah.
Because I did calories in, calories out. So as soon as I would start eating again, so because I didn't realize that even if I lost weight, even though all that, I was still insulin resistant. So as soon as I went carnivore, I realized that the insulin resistance was gone because I stopped needing to pee every 45 minutes, and I was less thirsty all the time. I'm still quite thirsty, but just normally, but it was just like constant sipping and then constant peeing because of that blood sugar now that you're trying to expel. And the IBS, like I didn't even think about it. Like I still have, of course, irritable bowel syndrome for many, many years. It was very debilitating, and of course, vegan diet made it 1,000 times worse. Then, but I didn't think about it at all. Like I went carnivore just as a kind of like a challenge to myself to see what happens, and IBS was gone within weeks. I was really baffled. Like I didn't expect it at all. And just the weight stabilization, like for me, was no, like I know lots of people go carnivore and they suddenly get super lean and they're like melting away and all that. Good for them. Like I'm happy for them, but it didn't happen to me actually because I was eating like, cause like as the same as vegan, like you get carnivore influencer just promoting, oh, you can literally shove a whole tub of butter down your in a day and you're not gonna gain weight because fat doesn't make you fat. It's not that accurate. Like fat won't make you become obese with insulin resistant diabetes,
Yes.
but you can still gain body fat by eating fat because it still matters that if you're eating 6,000 calories a day and you only burn 2,000, the 4,000 are gonna go somewhere. So I did actually start getting a little bit chubbier, but it was all subcutaneous, and then I kind of started like playing with like protein sparing days and just trying to find kind of my way. And also eating so much fat wasn't making me feel all that amazing, to be honest. Like every solution for like carnivore problems was like eat more fat, but no, is like is not everything gets solved by eating a bunch of butter. Like everyone needs a tailored solution.
Well, and I think putting the focus on protein and the natural fats that come with that protein, maybe a little bit of added fat, like a pat of butter or something for flavor and that kind of thing to cook in, that suffices. I think the whole notion that, oh, you're just putting gobs upon gobs, a whole stick of butter, it's just ridiculous. Nobody's actually doing that. And so thank you for articulating that, by the way. Kyla had a question. Someone like me has issues with IBS, but does already eat meat. What is the advice you would offer to help people like her instead of medication?
So cut out plants foods, cut out dairy, and just focus on do like a 30-day kind of like reset, like gut. Just ruminant meats and loads of bone broth. Like I drink like so much bone broth because it's all that glycine, and just you kind of give your digestive tract a massive break, and then you go from there. You start bringing it back. You start bringing back dairy, other meats, and then you have to be like really kind of like play the like little bit at a time and just see what happens. Like it's not like a forever thing. You can start bringing foods back, like, but you just become hyper aware of what your gut. But if you give your gut a massive break with no plants food and no dairy and nothing that basically ferments, the IBS should clear like in a month or maybe a bit more, depending on how bad. It's usually like the leaky gut syndrome that takes a little bit longer to heal, depending on how damaged the gut lining is. But loads of bone broth, loads of collagen should heal those tears.
That bone broth is amazing. Like, and I cook literally everything, Danny, in bone broth. Like, I just made a meal before we came on the air. I had some pastured pork sausage, local farmer, and I put some pepperoni in there, a little bit of mozzarella, but I put beef bone broth for it to simmer in. And it like soaked up all those juices, and then you have that. It's great. And I know people will drink bone broth straight up. It's like a nice little morning coffee substitute. And yeah, it's awesome. When you learn proper nutrition, your body will reward you pretty quick.
Yeah, and it's good that you say coffee, because I cut out coffee as well.
Yeah,
Because
the bean.
again, coffee will wreck your gut if that's like, you just have to clean it up, clean everything, and then see, like, you might be okay with coffee, you might be okay with tea, or you
Yeah.
might have a coffee and realize that you're bloated all of a sudden, and then, you know, okay, question is, as far as breakfast and lunch drinking that as a meal, yeah, like anytime, any moment of the day you can drink bone broth. There's no really
Bone broth
a
is
right or wrong.
bone broth
You
is
can take it with you. It's amazing. Like, even if you're a bit hungry and like you don't want to eat, having you have a cup of bone broth, you're full for like an hour for sure. There's all those amino acids and all that.
although I made a mistake when I was doing some extended fast. Thought, oh, I'll drink bone broth and save off the hunger. It actually more hungry when all you're consuming is bone broth. And I know people like to do fasting with bone broth. It made me hungrier. It still has amino acids in it, you guys, and so you got to be
You're
mindful.
still digesting, yeah. So yeah, like touching up on the fasting thing, I think if you're gonna do carnivore, like one thing that I did really wrong is that I throw myself into fasting. And if you're extremely metabolic and flexible, you can't fast. Like, you have to reduce, you have to start slowly. Like, even 12 hours can seem like ages for someone who is eating 6 times a day, like standard people basically, who has a nighttime snack and then eats first thing in the morning, snacks throughout the day. So I thought, sure, I went to like intermediate fasting, and it gave me onset hypoglycemia, adrenal fatigue. So like, just eat when you're hungry. Like, don't think because some, like, again, a lot of people say, oh, if you fast, it's like the most amazing thing. Like, yeah, like it can be, but it can be is a stressful time for your body.
Yeah.
And like, if you add stress on stress, if you have high cortisol, adrenal fatigue, which loads of people has, and they don't really know they have it, they just feel like shit all the time. So can I swear? Like, I don't know if this is PG. And you have low motivation at the gym, you're dragging yourself. That's all signs of like adrenal, like, burnout. And adding fasting on top of that, I think, is a bit of a gamble, because it could go really well, but it could go really wrong because you're stressing your body even more.
Right.
So yeah, there's no one size fits all, and like loads of influencers just push their one message, be like, this is work for me, so it's gonna work for you. And you have to really be like, oh, I'm actually hungry in the morning. Like, I'm hungry in the morning. Does that mean I have the worst metabolism in the world? I don't think so. Like, I train a lot in the morning, I do my weights, and I can't do it fasted. And it took me a lot of time to just admit it to myself and to start eating 3 meals a day. And that's it. That's how it works for me. Like, I can't do 1 or 2 meals a day, and that's all. That's me.
By the way, having an accent and saying "shut," it's a little better than "shit." To your point, that's great. By the way, thank you for articulating your thoughts about fasting. Women, and I've had different people on my podcast recently. Cynthia Thurlow just released a book about intermittent fasting for women. It's different than it is for guys, especially the week before your cycle starts. Um, that's tough. Like, you don't want to be messing with fasting the week before, and so timing it the right way and kind of getting the right foods in at that time, it all matters.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, don't, like, if you're training hard and you're like going for it, lifting weights, I think like there is a safe space for carbohydrates. Like, I know some people now might jump off and be like, oh, she said the C word, and like, um I think it depends on your situation. If you're metabolically healthy, you lost the weight, visual fat's gone down and all that. Now you want to like really hit the gym, lift super heavy or do sprints or any like kind of explosiveness, and you're feeling like you just don't have that edge because you are in
Yeah.
ketosis. And like, why not have a tablespoon of honey or like a bit of fruit and then have that extra, you at the gym half an hour more, or like you go an extra mile because you burn it off. But if you're gonna sit all day at the office, what's the point? Like, that's why I tell people, like my clients, when they're like, oh, when can I start eating carbs again and all that, I was like, it's up to you. If you're gonna come and hit it hard at the gym, do it. But if you're gonna sit all day at home, what are you using them for? There's literally no utilization apart from your brain, maybe a little bit, which our brain loves ketosis anyway. So yeah, I think you have to tailor it to your own needs. When I go to the gym, I hit it hard. The carbs help me going the extra mile. So
Yeah.
that's why I use them.
It's been 3 years since the release of my last book, but now I have written a brand new book called One Step Deeper Journal, The Foundations, featuring my co-host of my One Step Deeper podcast, Brittany Lee Davis. And this, you guys, is going to be an incredible book for those of you who struggle with mindset, struggle with why you believe things the way you do, if you've gone through any kind of trauma in your life. We got you. It's a 40-day journal. We're going to take you through all of the different topics. Brittany and I actually give you a lot of our own personal story. There will be lots of places to do journal entries where we prod you. This is one of the proudest books I've ever written, and it's available at onestepdeeperjournal.com. Within the next few days, we're expecting it to be available on Amazon. So go check it out. One Step Deeper Journal, The Foundations. Well, and you're metabolically much healthier than you were. You are
Yeah.
lifting heavy, and I love that, by the way. And I love people like Tara Garrison. Do you follow her work where she lifts and she talks about targeting the carbs around that time so you get the best bang, you get that kind of massive like workout, having some carbs, then prepares and fills up your tank for that next workout the next day. And it's beautiful that people tinker around and kind of see what works for you. We can become so hard-nosed, and this is what's discouraging to someone like myself is, yes, I'm the keto guy, but I also know there's different things strategically people could do to maximize that keto the rest of the time, but using carbs in a targeted sense so that you get the best benefits. Because this isn't about dogma. That's what the vegan diet was all about, was dogma all the time. This isn't dogma. It's about finding what works for you.
Like 100%. And there are benefits to carbohydrates, which, it can give a boost to some hormones. Like, I don't really look into much into that because, like, I know that we are biologically made to 100% survive without carbs.
Yes.
But my nuance is, are we made to thrive without them? Is a nuance. It's like surviving and thriving are not the same. So yeah, we can 100% live without them, but can we thrive 365 days a year without them? I think it's totally like individual. Like some people, like Sean Baker will never see a carb again in his life, and he does amazing. He's lifting, like all that. But then some people instead, well, we know the Paul Salandino, he loves his carbs, and he look at him, he's freaking just super slender and toned and all.
He's never been big. He has genetics that help him look that way. This is my problem a little bit, Dani, with the kind of online health space. Well, look at me and look what I eat, and therefore if you eat what I eat, you'll look like me. Bullshit. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And yet that's the message that comes across so loud. And look, I love Paul. I love everybody that puts out messages, but give the caveat. Yeah, I've really been obese in my life. Yeah, I've never really struggled. Yeah, I have this body and it's a much better version of the body I even used to have because of the things I do. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to do that for you.
Yeah, and what people, that's the thing. Like, if I try to like explain people how fat cell work, like if your fat cell never know a bigger size, they'll never know it. But if you are bigger at some point in your life, your fat cells are always gonna try and go back to that size.
Yes.
So like now that I've been, 2-3 sizes bigger than I'm now, I'm always gonna have to be careful. It's never gonna be like whatever life for me anymore. Before, when you see the pictures, I was like tiny. So at that point, I could have done anything. If I started like lifting weights back then, I would have been probably ripped by now with like abs 365 days a year. But my fat cells are now, they've been bigger and they're always going to try and be bigger. So yeah, that was me. Quite petite person I was. But that was effortless. And yeah, that was me at my biggest probably.
And that's you now.
Yeah, more or less, maybe not every day. That was like a photo shoot, so it was like a bit of a special occasion. I didn't wake up like that for sure.
I bet you looked and felt good that day, and those pictures
Yeah.
are proud, and they should. You've done a great job. I'm running out of time. I want to make sure I ask you this question here. What is it that you think, Dani, people get wrong about metabolic health? Because there's a lot of people that are out there talking about metabolic health. What is a big whopper? What is the lie that people are hearing about metabolic health that just ain't true?
Oh, that's so tricky. Like, I think most people hear about calorie deficit,
Yeah.
and they think that's like all they need to do is just be in a deficit. And what they don't know that when you're in a deficit, there's a lot that like the leptin like will start telling you to move less, eat more, because like your metabolism drops. So there's a lot of nuances, like again, really complicated, like because like the body should naturally want to go into a deficit because you're eating protein enough, it's satiated enough. Like being in a deficit, like when you're sitting down all day, maybe you're only burning 1700 calories, means 1200 calories a day, 500, like the whole, you want to lose a pound of fat, you need 500, 3,500 calories, blah, blah. But what you don't realize, that 1200 calories, you're starving yourself, like your hormones are gonna like you don't get enough calories for your, like you get enough calories but not enough nutrients and like protein and fat for your body to function properly. So your body's just not gonna do what you want it to do. So, and plus they don't talk about muscle mass, they don't talk about like protein. So it's just, again, this oversimplification of like how it works. Basically, you're in a deficit, you lose weight, and and then with it, like some people just has a better metabolism. So like I know some people has a better metabolism, but it's the why. It's like, what were they doing when they were children? It's not like you're born with it. You, first of all, it's probably like a little bit of like genetic, like probably the fat cells, your like muscle mass gets passed on a little bit, like that kind of like predisposition. But also these kids probably were really active, they were eating quite a lot of meat, they play a sport where they were children, maybe like a competitive sport, training a lot, and that builds your metabolism for success when you're older. So it's not just like some people are just blessed by the stars and like, it's like, yeah, like my partner has been training for a really long time. Like his dad was always like, because he's Nigerian, so they eat a lot of meat, a lot of like cartilages and offal and stuff like that. Never had a cavity, and straight teeth, like all that is just, it's not, you can't just say, oh yeah, it's just some magical stars were aligned when he was conceived. It's like, it's things that you build from childhood. And I feel like there's a lot to be done in terms of children health, which maybe we won't go into, but like we can do a lot for our children since very, very little. Like even just, I was explaining the other day, I was like, this whole jaw, like we think that our jaws are like, again, genetics, but no, it's like the foods you're eating through childhood are gonna determine your face structure. So giving your children just baby food and pasta and all these soft foods, they have underdeveloped jaws. So I went to a tangent, like that's me. There's a lot. there's a lot to be said about metabolism and how to build it basically. But you can build it even at like 60, just lift heavy weights, eat loads of protein, cut out the crap, and you can gain probably better shape than you were when you were 30 if
Oh,
you want to.
oh, for sure. Last question for you, Dani, and it's kind of a big one too. You mentioned earlier that you dealt with insulin resistance, which was exacerbated by your plant-based diet. How do you know when you've been healed from insulin resistance? What are the signs?
Signs are like your stomach gets flatter, which doesn't mean abs. You can still have subcutaneous fat, but as a woman, even if you are curvy, let's say, you still should have a pretty flat stomach. So your waist should be still relatively small. So having a waist is like, I know centimeters, I don't know inches, like 80 centimeters, like lower than 80 centimeters.
How many? 80 centimeters.
Yeah, it should be like
For people that are in America, 31 inches.
31 inch lower, like you should stay lower than 31 inch. 31 inches is already a problem.
Right.
So lower than 31 inches and relatively flat. That's a
For women, you're talking about.
yeah.
40, I believe, is the number in inches, whatever that is in centimeters.
Yeah, I think for centimeters like 90, so it's a bit bigger for men. And your weight is stable, so it means that you're going out, you're having a pizza, pasta, whatever, and you haven't gained 3 pounds overnight. Insulin resistance makes you pee a lot, so the fact that you can go 2-3 hours without needing the toilet, that's a really good sign of you're not overproducing urine to get rid of the sugar. And then a lot of other signs, fatigue, but then fatigue is such like fatigue could be anything. So I think fat distribution is key to understand if you're hormonally healthy. But then, I think the best thing is just to get a blood test. Your fasting insulin will tell you immediately.
Well, and there is this thing in America, and my friend Roxana has mentioned one of them as well. There's a LPIR score on an advanced lipid panel test that you can get, at least here in America, called NMR lipoprofile test, and it gives you your insulin resistance score. I think if it's under 25, you're more insulin sensitive. There's also this thing called HOMA-IR, HOMAIR. But yeah, there's all those kinds of tests, and triglyceride to HDL ratio is another good one. Your inflammation markers, your fasting insulin levels, like look at all of the totality of all those things. And then I would add like physical signs, like if you have those little skin tags, that means you're still insulin resistant. I have those. And so I know I still battle the insulin resistance despite my best efforts to carnivore and ice baths and fasting and all the things that I do. Some people are going to have to just deal with it the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it takes time. Is a really like because you're fixing a broken system. Like your cell have to literally start working against again. So like it's like the longer you've been insulin resistant, the longer it's going to take you to get out of it, unfortunately. But we can spot it so early. I had a client, she was tiny, like tiny, like maybe like I look on those pictures before vegan, like, and she just had a little bit of a pouch like stomach, but that's it. That nothing. She had no other fat apart from this belly. And as soon as we clear out her diet a little bit, she was like on McDonald's and pizza basically. But still, she was eating 1,000 calories a day, like of McDonald's and pizza. And as soon as we put a protein, we lower the carbs, we stimulate a bit her metabolic flexibility by saying, okay, maybe don't eat carbs breakfast and lunch, and then eat them only at dinner. Immediately she showed like the belly going down, and when she eats carbs the belly comes back. So that's like we're talking maybe like 40 years before diabetes, even more maybe. So it like with the right education we can really start spotting it, like for mostly young women, because like women we are a lot more affected, not even talking when we hit menopause, then our insulin sensitivity just goes downhill. We can really prevent it and help get it fix it before it gets like years and years in accumulation basically.
Yeah, if you get too far down the road, there may be a point of no return. Well, I want to show people your YouTube channel because you do make videos over there under the Stay Fitness brand. So go look her up
Yeah.
over there, guys. And what kind of videos do you do? I see your weight loss journey. You got carnivore tacos, how to make ghee. I watched that one the other day. I was like, you go, girl. That was good.
Yeah.
Is that what you do? Just recipes and kind of health tips?
Yeah, some poke in the bear videos like why vegan diets will ruin your health and 5 things I wish I knew before going vegan. Just a little bit. I like to keep it mixed, like a bit of controversial stuff, a bit. I have a whole metabolic health playlist. Just like that's my kind of like how I express myself through YouTube, basically. How I talk about things I love. It's very like kind of me, very genuine. I don't really do any clickbait or like any like I just talk about something sparks me like I would so a client would ask me a question and then I go and like okay this is probably something people would want to ask and that's how it goes basically. But yeah, I'm very proud of my carnivore tacos.
Content making 101 is whatever people ask about, it's what they want to know about. And so, yes, that's how I come up with so much content. Also, her website, stayfitness.co.uk. Go check that out as well. Nice shot there. And then if you want to book her, she also takes clients. I assume you take international clients as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take 100%. You can set up a free consultation. There's a link in my website where you can set up a free consultation, 30 minutes. We can just talk through whatever is going on and find a solution, basically.
Absolutely. Well, guys, Dani Vizintin, go check her out. Dani Stay Fitness over on Instagram. And hope you enjoyed hearing her here today. Dani, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for all you're doing to spread the good word.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I love it. So anytime you want me back, I'll be back.
Time to get inspiration from the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. Hey, the livinglowcarbshow.com. Woo!
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active, or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.